Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 556. I kicked off with d4. My opponent went with knight f6, and we get into a Nimzo-Indian. Oh, I wanted to mention before we go on that it was another short game. I played some long games too, but I had some glitches with the recording, so they didn't come out. So anyway, that's why you're getting some short games here. Hopefully that problem has been fixed. We'll see. Anyway, I continue with c4, normal queen's pawn opening type of move, e6, and knight c3, which allows the Nimzo-Indian. And my opponent plays that, and then I go for e3, the Rubinstein variation. So right here, black plays an unusual move. Let's see, yeah, e3 is really one of the top choices. Queen c2 is a classical, and that's also a main move. Usually the black players, they kind of sit on this pin for a while. There's no hurry in this position to take right away, and if you can force white to kind of waste the tempo by kicking the bishop, or you can wait till white castles and then play that exchange. But if you really want the doubled pawns and to play against the doubled pawns, taking immediately ensures that I don't have time to defend that knight. If black doesn't take right away, say castles, just for example, there are moves here, not the most common moves, but there are moves like bishop or knight to e2 or bishop to d2. You can see in bishop d2 there, knight e2 there, that defend this knight, and then you don't get the doubled pawns. So if you want to go after the doubled pawns, you really have to take right away. Now the argument against that is that these moves, knight e2 or bishop d2, are not the most effective moves for white, so you've already kind of, by just sitting there with the bishop, extracted some kind of penalty. So that's why the black players usually will just sit there with the pin for a while, wait till either white castles or which unpins, or plays a3 to force the issue, and then trade. Okay, but in this case, after e3, decide to take right away. Like I said, that guarantees that I get the doubled pawns. But you see that white has compensation, has an open file, and he has the bishop pair. So still a fine position for white. He goes c5, undermining the center. I go knight f3, just defending it, shoring up the d-pawn a little bit. And now d6 is the normal move here, setting up a kind of a solid pawn structure. Let's see, what's the chess engine recommending? b6 or knight c6? Oh, knight c6, still a good move. Bishop to d3, just continuing to develop. Yeah, it's interesting. After in this position, it's a relatively rare position, but I guess after knight c6, we've transposed back into a normal kind of position. So bishop d3, and then d6 here is the main way of playing it. Sometimes after d6, the follow-up is e5, and that's an interesting way for black to kind of set up a blockade in the center. And pretty solid position for black. So d5 is a little more challenging, but I think in this case probably a bit of a mistake. White is in good shape here with the bishop pair. He hasn't fallen behind in development, and so opening things up probably benefits white in this position. So what did I play? The chess engine is recommending just castling for the strongest edge. I played c takes d5, undoubling the pawns. This still keeps an edge, but maybe not the most precise move. Okay, he takes back, and then I kick with c4. Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by that he took with the knight. I think it'd be more typical to take with the pawn and try and keep a pawn in the center. It is true that I could give black an isolated queen's pawn, but this pawn would be weak as well. So what I'm saying is, if he played here, just took back with a pawn, I would probably take here to give him that isolated queen's pawn. It looks like I'm up a pawn, but it's this doubled isolated c pawn, so it's not a great pawn, and he's probably going to round it up pretty quickly with a move like queen to a5, which is a double attack on those pawns. So I think this position is okay for black, and that's probably the best way to play. So knight takes d5. Again, castling, queen b3, the engine likes queen b3. I thought this was interesting just to kick the knight away. Yeah, and that keeps a pretty good edge for white as well. The knight goes forward to b4. Probably should have just gone back to f6. But, well, anyways, interesting play with the knights here, trying to get some activity against the queen side before I've had time to castle. I don't want to give up the bishop pair, so I retreat my bishop back to b1. Yeah, the engine is pointing out this move bishop to e4 is kind of an interesting way to play as well. But bishop b1 is not bad. It's surprising, but these bishops on the back rank are sometimes still quite effective pieces. So it looks like they're not developed, but in a way they are, as long as they're looking at good diagonals. And the one issue with leaving bishops on the back rank is you can't connect the rooks, so that might be a problem in some cases. Anyway, black exchanges here in the center. And now, yeah, that was not necessary either. That was knight to a5. So the chess engine wants to keep moving the knights forward now that he's kind of committed to these excursions with the knight. Targeting the knight to a5 targets the c4 pawn. Here, let's erase these arrows. That looks kind of interesting. So after knight a5, just castle and give up the pawn, and then play a3, kicking the knight. Interesting way to play, kind of dynamic there, letting black grab that pawn. Okay, but anyway, he took right away. I took back, and now this is pretty clearly a good position for white. I have the two pawns that are influencing the center, and now both these bishops have open diagonals to look out at, so I really control quite a bit of space. And the only thing that black has in his favor is these knights are kind of advanced, and if they can find some clever tactics over here, then I could be in trouble. So, but with a little bit of caution, I should be okay. So I start by castling. Oh no, he castles here. That's right, it's his turn to move. I start by playing a3, kicking his knight back. The knight drops back to a6. There was no good square for the knight. That was what I had noticed, that all these squares were under control of the bishop. When the bishop dropped back, you know, it kept control of these squares that knight might hit. This square is covered by the pawn, so really that leaves this square as the only way to go. And now I castle. And then right here he makes the move that loses the game. But you see I have quite a comfortable edge. Let's see, he could play on with f6. It's kind of a weakening move, though. f6 would leave the e-pawn weak. But maybe the idea is to play f6 and then e5 and open up that diagonal for the light-squared bishop. That might be a reasonable strategy. Yeah, f6, rook e1, e5. So let's take a look at this, how the game might have continued. It still seems that white has a pretty strong edge here. So if he played there, rook e1, and then e5. So he gets his pawns into the center and also opens up a diagonal for his light-squared bishop. And I can take, or I can push on with d5. Looks like that might even be better. And yeah, I just have a better position with the bishop pair. And these pawns look pretty influential. And this knight is kind of sad over here on the side of the board. So good position for white, but no immediate win. Anyway, let's back up to the game. In the game he played, after I castled, he played queen f6, which on the surface is kind of a logical move. It's getting out of the way so the rook can come over, and you know, he's able to pile up pressure on this d-pawn, and also the queen move pins that pawn because my rook in the corner is undefended. The bishops on the back rank leave this rook loose over here. So it had some logic to it, but it just didn't take into account the one move, yeah, bishop g5, exploiting the position of the queen, and there's just nowhere for the queen to go. This f6 square is actually a very dangerous place for the queen in general, so you should always, when you see a queen on f6, and particularly when you have a knight on f3, always look for this tactic. He could have, if we back up, he could have also prepared queen f6 by playing a move like h6. That's one of the moves here, but still white would have a good advantage here. But anyway, after queen f6 and bishop to g5, my opponent resigned. So short but interesting game. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.